Beautiful. Welcome everyone, and welcome back to our weekly or fortnightly LinkedIn Live. I've got Arthur Callis, CEO and owner of Spark Financial Planning Group, national around Australia, and I've also got Bram LeGroux. Bram, what do we say about you other than just absolutely magic when it comes to working with you? I've also got Chris Smoje.
Great to be here.
We've got some background noise there.
What do we say about you?
Can you just do a private chat?
I've also got Chris.
So Chris is an expert educator and a thought leader on customer service cultures. He holds a postgraduate qualification in adult and tertiary education and is a certified speaker professional. There's only 800 of them worldwide. So putting Chris in a top echelon of conference speakers globally. He works with organisations as a keynote speaker and program facilitator, and Chris has recently lots of background noise. Okay.
Chris, if you could mute yourself for just a moment, please, until we're ready.
Great. Okay, beautiful. Thanks, Chris. It must have been coming from, I could hear that background noise. So Chris is recently just written a book, All in Culture. I have absolutely thoroughly loved reading it. So we keep getting that background noise.
Beautiful. Thanks, Chris. It must have been coming from, I could hear that background noise. So Chris is recently just...
Rightio. Okay, sorry, don't you love these live sessions? We literally have just got to get on with it and figure out what is going on. But look, thank you, Chris. Chris, you're currently in Croatia at the moment. Your book has just launched here in March. I just absolutely thoroughly enjoyed receiving it. I've thoroughly enjoyed reading it as well. You know, one of the things I love in the book is we talk about, you talk about that we think we know what our customers want and we think we give good service, but it's not about what we think our customers want from customer service. It's actually delivering what the customer wants. Okay. And I think, one of the things that you talk about is the importance of continuing that education and continuing to grow and learn and just not remain the same, because our customers evolve, don't they? Can you talk a little bit more about that? So around how we as businesses continue to evolve, how we treat our customers the way they want to be treated.
Thanks, Kylie. And look, it's so great to be here with you all, to meet you, Arthur and Bram. Kylie, we of course have known each other for a little while now, and thank you so much for that introduction and for the opportunity to be here, albeit early from Croatia, but still an absolute joy to be talking to people like you, around the world on the platform, which is great. What you just said then is I think a huge, classic roadblock when it comes to leading service cultures. And that is, I think, there are so many, let's just say programs out there that have prescriptive, steps in terms of how to serve customers. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do that. And they are so often rigid and often overused. And we can talk about overused at another point. But they are so often rigid that they assume that customers are all the same, which of course they're not. And most people know that. But therefore, if we're going to lead a service culture, we need to have some sort of framework that basically, helps leaders share to their teams, this is how we serve customers, but not in a rigid, prescriptive, or even too loose manner. And that's what this book, and this is what I do now for a living, what it's all about, to help leaders lead service cultures that ultimately, it ultimately lands as to what customers want. Now, I do want to just say to this, because I think if someone was to tune in without context, you would just think, oh, well, customer service is just giving customers what they want. And I think if you frame it like that, it can come across quite unsustainable. What do you mean give them what they want? I always make a joke sometimes, if a customer comes up to the cash register, and I don't like to use cash register examples a lot, but if a customer came up to the cash register and said, look, I'm a bit short on my mortgage this month, can you just give me an extra 50? I mean, look, if we keep getting told give customers what they want, well then sure enough, I mean, you just give them a 50. So there's obviously a lot of things that we've got to look at around that. But in the principle, or in essence, it is about customizing our service delivery to each customer. And look, I don't want to give you the longest answer ever, but I just want to say that it's 2023 at the time of recording this session. And it was actually in 1998 that a famous American service expert, Tony Alessandra, actually quoted this thing called the platinum rule, which we always knew the golden rule is treat others the way you wish to be treated. And in 1998, he said, well, maybe we should treat others the way they want to be treated. Most people have heard that, but can you believe that here we are in 2023 and we're still introducing people this phrase or this quote? And I don't think it's sunken in yet, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, one of the things that you follow in from that part in the book, which I absolutely love, because it is, and maybe it comes from, the 10 commandments of treat others as you want to be treated, and it was just sort of morphed into that. Whereas when I read that, I went, that's really interesting. But what followed on from that was, the amount of clients that aren't complaining, okay? So if we want to give them what they want, yet they're not complaining, how do we as business owners
detect?
How do people know what our customers want? What are you seeing out there, the businesses, or how can you recommend to the audience today how they can go out there and find out what their customers want to be able to deliver?
Well, look, firstly, I think we have to, talk about that sort of misconception that, everybody says, oh, customers, they love to complain, or they're all full of complaints. Look, in my research, and I'm sure there's so much more research out there, but in my research, I have not found something to either support or disprove that statement. There are, as you've just said, Kylie, statistics out there that say that customers are not complaining as much. The customers are voting with their feet. They're not, not voicing their opinions. I'm often like that, to be honest. There are many situations where you choose not to say things. But on the flip side, the Australian Telecommunications Ombudsman have reported year on year about an increase in 60,000 complaints year on year. Now, look, they are an ombudsman. They are there for complaints. It's telcos, so maybe the figures are slightly skewed there. But you can see my point. So firstly, it's so interesting to get rid of the myth that customers just love to complain. So if customers are not complaining enough, well then what do we need to do? Now, I think that the most obvious solution is simply to be able to ask our customers, what is the service like that you're receiving, for instance, and build in a few evaluation metrics. And for those who are reading, evaluation comes toward the end of the book, but build in some evaluation metrics around how your service is landing. But I think at the essence, and I know this is a little bit, let's just say, philosophical to say this, but I think at the essence, if people are in tune, I'm talking about the person who's delivering service in whatever industry that may be, financial services. If someone is in tune with the customer, they're in flow, they're sort of very perceptive to expressions, to what customers are saying, what customers are not saying, even sometimes pausing to give them that moment to, ask that extra question. they are all useful things that we can do to more tailor or customize our service for customers.
Yeah, I love it. I think we sometimes forget to do that. We just assume transactions done, service delivered, solution provided. Thanks, see you next year. Or thanks, I'll see you next time, as opposed to actually, how could we do better? What could we do differently? What's working? You know, all of those. So I think that's
now
wonderful.
I have to just say, look, and one of the things in terms of what I do, it's not how to communicate. And I want to just preface that obviously communication is a huge part of service, but it's not only service. But one of those interesting things about communication, and I mentioned pausing just then, is if you think about the four of us in the room here or on the stream right now, often we always remember to ask something at the end after that conversation is finished or when the person turns their back. I mean, there are so many times, and this is not, and I try my hardest to not rant about service because that's not what I believe is good for this situation. But I know that there are often many times when I'm talking to a bank, for instance, when they're so trigger happy to cut me off so they can play the recorded announcement to give them a rating. And it's as they cut me off that I go, oh, that's what I meant to ask. Oh, I had one more question. So I think it is so important that, you look at the four of us, let's ask another 4 people or another 10 people. They'd all probably say the same thing, which is, I think, why it's so important to get those finer details of communication better so that we can allow for customers to ask that extra question. And also just to add, when we speak too much as a service provider, so when we're actually having a great interaction, that can also distract customers too. So sometimes the better we get along with customer highlights the need to even more often than not, just pause at the end because the customer might be in the conversation that we're having, but not kind of thinking about what they've got to ask next.
Yeah. And look, Bram's a communication expert. He works with leaders and teams all throughout the world around communication mastery. So I could ask you a million questions, but I've got to pass you off to Bram. Okay. So Bram, yours for the floor. What are some of the insights, questions you've got for Chris?
Well, first of all, Chris, it's a pleasure, mate, and I appreciate you getting up as early as you have back in Europe. One thing that I noticed is on your profile is that you've been very familiar with Disney. And I think Disney is, if you ask me, who is like one of those organizations that stands out with the way they treat customers, it's Disney. My oldest memory is of in Disney World Paris, of having an experience unlike any others, and it still sticks to my mind many, many moons later. So tell us a little bit more, like what sort of things have you learned there that really is like at the excellence level of service?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to say, as a professional speaker who speaks with audiences, I obviously love learning and I love learning experiences. And I was very fortunate, you mentioned Disney, to be an alumni of the Disney Institute. Now, I kind of say that sometimes and expect people to go, I know what you're talking about. But people don't often. In fact, whenever I say Disney Institute, they go, sorry, what institute? There's an Institute of Disney. And I say, yes, there is. And they say, and what does this Institute of Disney do? And I say, well, it's a program where people from all over the world learn about business, but through the lens of Walt Disney and the Disney organization, effectively sharing time-tested principles that the Disney Institute or that Disney have mastered, and they share that with the world to apply, through other industries. That's the first thing. And also, if anyone wants to or has the opportunity to attend, I think it's one of the best programs that I've ever been on in my life. Certainly life-changing and very motivational for someone who does deliver training. But Disney, amongst a few others like the Ritz-Carlton, are one of the handful organizations that are renowned for their service. In other words, when most people hear the brand name or think about the company name, even if they haven't been there before, they associate it with good service. And I think that's a testament to the fact that the way that their culture works is so service focused. Now, it is important to clarify, and I don't know if I've quite answered the question because there are so many things that Disney do, but there is one thing that I'll say. I think, we can often, especially in any industry, but let's just use financial services as an example, we can often think that, oh, how can my financial planning company be like Disney? And sure enough, Disney have so much money for the smoke and mirrors and the fireworks. We can't dazzle our customers like that. And I'd actually say that's very true. In fact, the trick here is to not be like Disney. Disney have many philosophies and principles that certainly work. But what I think Disney do that we can't do, and I think we have the advantage, we don't have fireworks. We don't sell ice cream. We don't sell fairy floss or candy floss or whatever they call it in other countries. So it's very easy to dazzle a customer with the smoke and mirrors. Whereas for us who are working one-on-one with customers or two-on-one or whatever the organization is, we do have to work harder ultimately, which I think is a huge opportunity for us that places like Disney don't have.
Okay. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
And I just want to add, sorry, one more thing. Because again, someone might be watching this and someone might turn around and go, and I just wanted to add this because I think this is super important to clarify. Someone might say, oh, hang on, Chris, you're wrong. Or, I went to Disney in 1993 and this happened and it wasn't good. It is true that Disney don't always get it right. In fact, it went viral a few years ago. There was actually a Disney cast member, and I believe it was at the Paris studio. This Disney cast member actually live, while someone was proposing to their partner, went up to them and snatched the ring. So literally they were proposing in front of the Magic Castle, and this cast member, they were in an area that they shouldn't have been, and live on video, as the man got down on his knee, this cast member comes up and snatches the ring box off him and moved them away. Now, that copped a lot of criticism, and from a service perspective, that's probably not something that they should have done. But the point is that we all make mistakes. But what I love about Disney is because the way they're positioned from a service excellence perspective, when those odd situations happen, they're able to recover very conscientiously. They're able to go back and say, yep, it was wrong, and get back on. They don't let events like that completely derail or destroy their brand.
Yeah, good point. And it's about how do we apologise for it? Because sometimes that's what customers want, don't they? They just want a sorry. They just want to know we're going to do better next time. I know Arthur's got some questions, so I'll ask Arthur next.
Thanks, Kylie. I'm back. So if you've heard that line before, and I think it's a Disney invented line, but something to do with showbiz. Thank you, Chris, for your sharing of your experiences, and I'm really enjoying reading your book, which I'll get to. I think the closing comments there was around the sheer scale and volume of a business model like Disney's to get the replication right 99.999% of the time is an amazing feat, considering its size and scale. And I've read the first 50 pages of your book, and I kind of did the, I've kind of gone forwards, and I think you kind of start to touch on that repetition and replication and consistency themes around service delivery. I'm anticipating that is coming. But it's an amazing example where you got a business of that size and that scale to be able to deliver so many wonderful experiences so often. It's like you said, it's trialed and tested learnings over such a long period of time, and so much opportunity to do it. Because I was in LA in January, and I had a great experience, not only just going through the actual park itself, but I didn't have tickets. Like, I wasn't a ticket holder. And we've gone from where we were staying in Southern Cal, we've jumped in an Uber, traveled an hour, whatever it was, with my son. And we've lined up for the tickets. And I overheard conversation with, a worker there around, well, you need to be a ticket holder, like a season ticket holder, to get let in today. And I'm like, oh my God, I've come all this way and we can't get in. Anyway, lucky I had my passports, and we got to my son's like, starting to sweat and panic, it's like, and I've gone into the counter there, and the lady that served us, I said, look, we've come from Australia. We've come a long way. We really want to, get the experience. I understand there's only season ticket holders today. She goes, you've come a fair way. I'm sure we can make an exception for you. So I just need evidence. I said, here's our passports. No problem. Gave us a day pass, away we went. So I walked away with someone that had the delegated authority at that service point to be able to overcome policy, with actually had a physical person walking the line saying, do you have are you a season ticket holder? Are you a season ticket? And people were leaving. And we stuck at it, and we obviously hoping that they would overrule that policy and allow someone from another country to get through. So I've walked away with a great experience there. And I thank the lady that, I know she's not watching, but I'll thank her anyway. She left me with me and my son. So that's a great example that I thought that they got that right. And Kylie, if you're going to introduce Bram, is the muscles from Brussels.
Muscles from Brussels, I know.
You got it. If you're going to introduce these sessions moving forward, you got to get the intro right with Bram, the muscles from Brussels. Anyway, the other thing I picked up in your feedback, Chris, which I thought was wonderful, before, was the pulse. I think you were talking, the feel and the tone of the business. So Kylie's questions were around detection. How do we detect? I think people that are truly in tune with their business understand the pulse of the business. And in terms of my business, I know when there's unrest going on with my advisors. I can feel it. I don't need to hear it. I can just sense it. I can see it in the dialogue, the exchanges. And so, you need to jump on that, get on that straight away, because that can brew up into other, resentment and or frustrations and or exits. And so you got to be really have that pulse on your business. And it's a combination of direct feedback, indirect feedback, written feedback, tone, attendance to meetings. There's that constant pulse and that engagement. And what I'm hoping to learn from your book is how do you keep the pulse on your business as the business gets larger? You could probably do it with a certain size, but then there's degrees of separation between me and my end client as we grow larger, because we've got that growth trend. So then you've got different persons where you're relying and depending on, and that's a gap that I've got. I realize that right now is, I'm depending on my heads of department to keep a pulse on my business, and I don't have a systematic approach to actually check that they're giving me that input to better help me understand the pulse of my business. So that's something that I'm going to walk away and think about. I just had a tough conversation with one of our advisors, just before this meeting, around some direct feedback where, we're working with some people in this business, but we're not actually giving him as the principal that feedback. And so he's out of the loop. That's unacceptable, so definitely some learning there. And I take that experience into one of your models that you've shared in your book, which is the confrontation model around service, the 4 elephants. Yeah. So, there's nothing new to learn about customer service. There's always something to learn about customer service. You can never, it's a learning journey. And, the defensive, what's wrong with my customer service? There's nothing wrong. There's, and then it's simple stuff, but it's simple conceptually, but to get that scale and repetition, like that Walt Disney example, that's not easy. That's years of science and implementation and so forth. And, it's too hard. I kind of push it away, so I resist. But in terms of the model, I'm just conscious of time today, but how did you get to putting together the decision model? Like what constructed that for you? It's a good model.
No worries, absolutely. And I'm just right next to a main road, and there's a rubbish truck coming past literally as you ask that question. So huge apologies for anything as well, not necessarily a main road, but definitely a road. And here it comes, but hopefully it will pass any second now. But interestingly, there was so much loaded in that comment that you made there, and I could almost take a half an hour to answer it. But I want to make this as useful as possible for everybody watching this. Now, you're referring to, Arthur, there, this decision model about making some clear, it's going to move now, it's going to go, some clear decisions around servicing. We have to get over those decisions. You mentioned 4 of them there to progress. And there it is. It's in the early part of the book, and it needs to be in the early part of the book. That's the point. But how I came up with that was literally through the same principle of listening to clients. So what I mean, for instance, is I would actually, in my early days of working in my own business, go to a meeting with a customer and or catch up with a customer. And the customer would say things like, oh, we've done customer service training before. We ran one of those programs, 10 years ago, or, this has happened before, or they say, or they they'd say, come in and talk to our staff because one person secretly needs it. So we'll put the whole workforce through the program just so one person can get the message. And I would listen to these sort of these parts of resistance that were coming, particularly from the leader. And I thought, you know what, if we can just simply get over these, and I made it into a model, that will take us forward. Now, what's great about that model, and I know that we're talking about service culture, and that's what I'm all about, but I do want to just add that you could technically take this conversation or take that model and apply it to any topic or domain, including leadership training, including productivity training, including email management. So if we can use these 4 principles or these 4 decisions to get over ourselves, it will start something amazing and will get us onto track.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Look, just saying I'm enjoying the read, and definitely timing is, of the essence. And thank you so much for sharing your book and for your handwritten message. I really appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Beautiful. Chris, I'm really keen for you to just share before we wrap it up for the day. Why did you write the book for? Who should be reading this book? And then finally, how can people reach out and get in contact with you or find the book?
Absolutely, Kylie. And look, time goes by really quickly. I actually didn't know. I probably should have checked the calendar how long we had with my longer answers. But look, you've seen the book. You can talk all day about these things anyway. Absolutely. So absolutely. Look, why I wrote the book actually was because, well, obviously I had a market, needed to get a message out, but it was definitely stuck in my mind. I've been doing this for about 15 years. So I wouldn't say that that's a long time, but my mind was bursting with ideas, and I just wanted to get the book out to as many people in the world as possible. Who that is for, it is for leaders. Now, it ideally would be great for a CEO of a larger organization. When I say larger, with a number of frontline, staff members. It can apply to any industry, but too often, and just to touch on something that Arthur said just a moment ago, if you work in your own business, you've got discretion, you can make decisions. The moment, though, that you start getting staff and they start getting staff, then you're unable to completely have your finger on the pulse all the time or be in control. And then you can start getting reactive, then you can start getting stressed. So it's designed for senior leaders to actually relook at service culture and help them effectively implement some processes and principles to get out of the way, to be much more service focused. Typically, they're not service focused enough either. So to relook at service, we can get distracted doing a lot of other things and then get out of the way and let it happen. But in addition to senior leaders, it works well for middle managers, but also, and the third sort of and final target market is actually HR or people and culture. And there's a whole section at the very end that talks about how HR processes can come in and support this. And I think that's a key point, that often leaders and HR teams don't always work well together, or leaders and their middle managers don't always work well together. And I think that's the key thing, that the key theme running through this book is how to unite an entire organization around service. It's not just up to one person.
Yeah, true.
And you wanted to know how to get in touch, didn't you?
I do, yeah. Tell us how we can get in touch, but I'll also get you to add in the comments, your LinkedIn or your email, phone number, just so that people can continue to reach out, because, a book is great. We can read through it, and, there's going to be some great elements that they can take away and apply, but also getting that support from someone like you who's a specialist and can help guide it is going to be an opportunity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely want to say to everybody out there, I'd love you to pick up a copy of the book. It is on Amazon, so all in culture. I've even brought a copy over here with me here. And I know, Bram, you've held it up a few times after Kylie as well. So thank you for all of that. Oh, let's go. All four of us.
Let's go.
All at the same time. Here we go. Love it. Beautiful. Excellent. So I'd love you to get a copy of the book. And why I say that is because the book is generous with everything. It is not one of those books, and I'm not, there are some books that withhold things, or some books that give you a taste, then don't go into detail. This book literally gives you everything. So it's all in there, but I'd love to have some conversations about it too. So my name just here, Chris Smoje. You can, LinkedIn's probably my main place where I blog and post and share ideas. But also my email, very simply, you can go direct to me, chris@chrissmoje.com is the email to get in touch. And you know what? They always say, good service is helping customers get in touch with you. So my mobile number is 0484 346 327. Pick up the phone. Even while I'm abroad, I'm happy to chat about it. So that's the way to get in touch.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Chris. It was so great to have you on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. We'll make sure all of the details are also in our comment section. Thanks again. Anything else from you, Bram?
It's been a pleasure, mate.
Thank you so much. Great job today, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining.